How are you? Everybody's a little sedated today. It's Wednesday. All right, good afternoon. The Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, Adama Dieng, just concluded a visit to the Central African Republic today. Speaking to the press in Bangui, he warned those responsible for atrocities and those instrumentalizing and inciting ethnic and religious hatred will be held responsible and will have to face justice. In addition to visiting Bria in the Central African Republic, Mr. Dieng also met with national authorities, religious and community leaders, representatives of armed groups, civil society, and victims. He stressed the need to start a dialogue on urgent measures to end the violence and ease the intercommunal tensions. He said all the victims had expressed the same will to live together in peace with all Central Africans. Mr. Dieng also expressed concern about the gravity and scope of criminal atrocities committed by armed groups in the hinterland with total impunity. In their weekly press conference, our colleagues at the UN mission in the Central African Republic also said they had received an allegation of sexual abuse of a minor that took place in Bambari by UN peacekeepers. The alleged victim was immediately referred to our humanitarian partners on the ground for appropriate medical and psychological assistance. The Office of Internal Oversight Investigations is carrying out a verification information inquiry and has preserved evidence, which will lead to the matter being referred to the member state for further investigation and action. And on Libya, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that over 15,000 residents have been placed from city of SABRATA due to clashes and insecurity since September 17th. Humanitarian workers are supporting the impacted people by providing medical supplies, including trauma kits and body bags to the city's hospitals. Food and non-food assistance has so far been provided to nearly 2,000 displaced to surrounding areas. Emergency assistance, including food, bedding, and hygiene, as well as baby kits, are also being delivered to areas where migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers are being detained, and medical and psychosocial support is also being provided. There are concerns about overcrowding and the conditions of the centers where the migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers are being detained. Humanitarian workers are calling on the authorities to find solutions for the group, including alternatives to detention, and are calling for unimpeded access to all those currently held. And a new report issued in Geneva by the UN Human Rights Office has found that the brutal attacks against Rohingyas in Myanmar's northern Rakhine state have been well organized, coordinated, and systematic, and intended to drive the population out of the country and prevent them from returning. The report is based on interviews by a team from the Office of Human Rights that was conducted in Bangladesh's Cox's Bazar with dozens of newly arrived Rohingya refugees. The Office for the High Commissioner of Human Rights said they're gravely concerned for the safety of hundreds of thousands of Rohingyas who remain in northern Rakhine state amid reports the violence is still ongoing, and calls on authorities to immediately allow humanitarian human rights actors unfettered access to the area. And also in Geneva, the Secretary General's Special Representative for International Migration, Louise Arbour, spoke at the second multi-stakeholder hearing on the Global Compact for Migration. She noted that while the process to adopt a global compact is led by member states, the participation of all stakeholders is key in order to ground the debate in reality. She also urged civil society to remain committed to improve all aspects of international migration and help dispel misconceptions about migrants. And tomorrow, the sixth thematic session will begin in Geneva and will focus on irregular migration, regular pathways, and labor mobility. This is the last thematic session before the conference on international migration takes place next year. And back here this morning at the Security Council, the Secretary General Special Representative for the Democratic Republic of the Congo and head of the mission, Maman Sidikou, briefed the Security Council. He said that challenges related to the implementation of the 31 December agreement have unfortunately persisted in recent months, leading to a re-emergence of a climate of political uncertainty and tensions. He called for the implementation of confidence-building measures towards elections, noting that progress has been made with regard to the voter registration process. He added that the security situation has deteriorated in several provinces from the Kasais to the Kivus, impacting the life of civilians as well as food security in the country. Despite the scope of the challenges, the mission continues to adjust its presence to adapt the circumstances to maximize efficiency in the context of budget restrictions. He stressed that the UN's support was essential but not sufficient. All regional actors have a role to play to bring stability to the DRC, Mr. Sidikou said. And a report to flag from the World Health Organization, which is reporting today a tenfold increase in childhood and adolescent obesity over the last 4 decades. According to the new study done with the Imperial College London, the world will have more obese children and adolescents than underweight ones by 2022. The number of obese 5 to 19-year-olds rose from 11 million in 1975 to 124 million in 2016. An additional 213 million were overweight in 2016, but fell below the threshold for obesity. WHO has also released guidelines calling on frontline healthcare workers to actively identify and manage children who are overweight or obese. And today is the International Day of the Girl Child. This year's theme is Empower Girls, Emergency Response and Resilient Planning. It seeks to promote the protection of girls from conflict and violence to strengthen their resilience while ensuring their full participation in mediation and negotiation process. And at 3 p.m. At the UN headquarters here, the Deputy Secretary General will be taking part in the 5th annual Girls Speak Out event. And lastly, the Secretary General has appointed 9 new members to the 21-member advisory group of the Central Emergency Response Fund. As you will recall, the CERF was established in 2005. The advisory group provides policy guidance and advice on the use and impact of funds, and it manages the, and I'll stop there, and if you're interested in the list, it is in my office. Question time. Yes, sir.
Questions about meetings that are taking place today. One was on the DRC. I heard, you know, what you'd said, but can you say if there's been any progress on the investigation of the killings of the 2 experts, Michael Sharp and Zeta Catalan? Has there been any cooperation or coordination between the UN and the Congolese authorities in terms of moving
there's
that
been
forward?
discussion with the Congolese authorities how to best work on a follow-on mechanism with UN participation from the Secretariat, and as soon as we have confirmed details, we'll share them with you.
Okay. And I wanted to ask about I was just down in the 5th committee, and obviously the Secretary General spoke, and then some various member states spoke. He left. The U.S. hadn't yet spoken, and I just wanted to know, a lot of the speeches before that were about budget cuts and how, and his reform proposals. First of all, like, if you can say it, because it seemed like a pretty, maybe it was just the way the speeches were scheduled, but was there something that he had to do? It seemed like this was going to be a big moment.
The Secretary General has had scheduled meetings. The fact that he left had absolutely nothing to do with the fact the United States had not spoken. It was about to speak. As you know, the Secretary General has been deeply engaged in discussions on UN reform and UN budget with the U.S. Mission, given that the United States is the largest, has the largest single share of budget responsibility for the budget in the UN budget, and obviously also having contacts with members of Congress. So I think nothing should be read into that.
The one, I mean, and this is Macy Strachey. When I first went in there, I was actually first told there was no press. That's a quote, which it's obviously it's about money and it's an open meeting. So I wanted, maybe that was just a miscommunication.
Yeah, I think it's a miscommunication.
But I've noticed in the speeches that are sent out by the DPI media documents counter, we get almost every other committee. We get the 2nd committee, the 1st committee, but the 5th committee we're not getting, and it seems like this is about money. I'm not complaining about rate. I'm saying is it a policy decision of the UN to not circulate
as you know,
money speeches?
The money makes the UN go round, as they say. That's a question you should address either to GA spokesman or to the 5th committee. Okay. We have no control of that. Ms. Letter, and then.
Steph, do you have any additional details on this allegation of sexual abuse in Bambari? Was it a girl? How old? Was it just one person?
It was, from what I understand, and I think you should also ask our colleagues at the missions, they would have more detail. It was a 16-year-old girl who was involved in the incident, and the incident dates from the 30th of September. But the victim was immediately referred to humanitarian partners for psychosocial support, for going to the hospital, and the victim rights advocate on the ground, the local one, is ensuring that she remains safe and receives the assistance she needs.
And do you know whether anything has happened to the alleged perpetrator?
The TCC in question is being officially notified. We've ensured that an investigation is ongoing quickly. Yes, sir.
Steph, do you have any comment on the situation of the Commission Against Impunity in Guatemala? It seems that the visa of the commissioner, or the new visa of the commissioner, has been denied, and they are being subject to many more critics.
We understand his visa had not been renewed. We very much hope that the government will renew his visa. As you know, the Secretary General feels the work of the Commission and the Commission is extremely important. Yes, Mr. Lee.
Sure. I wanted to ask you about Togo. I've asked you before, you'd said Mr. Chambas went. Now the government has announced it's banning all weekday protests, which there have been a lot of protests, and it seems like, I wanted to know what success has the UN had in this Chambas visit and good offices, and does it have any comment on this restriction on the right to assemble?
Well, we feel that people, as a matter of principle, have a right to demonstrate peacefully, and that right should be upheld in whatever country. The discussions, I think Mr. Chambas's office continuing to look at the matter, and obviously the rising tensions is an issue of concern for us.
And I think, again, I'm sorry to ask you this again, but I keep getting questions from people in Cameroon, when Mr. Fall or his team, or just for more details, given what's going on there. Do you have anything more? The working group?
I have nothing more to share with you.
Are they? I mean, have you asked them and they don't
No,
want to say?
I have. If I had something to share with you, I try to offload it.
Okay, and I wanted to ask you about yesterday in the fourth committee. The ambassador of Morocco, Omar Halali, said two things. He said that Mr. Horst Kohler is going to the region next week, so he put a date on it. And he also said that the idea of a referendum is dead. That's what he's quoted as saying. And since that's the name of the mission, the referendum in Western Sahara, does the UN have any response? Does the UN believe that the idea of a referendum
on
is
a
dead?
potential visit by the new special personal envoy, as soon as we have something to confirm, we will do so. As far as I'm not going to comment on the ambassador's statement. The mission there has a mandate given to it by the Security Council, and its work is to implement that mandate. Thank you.